This is Lisa Barnes, and she's the VP of R&D, and she's the scientist formulator, one of the mega brains behind the Mind+Body GLP-1. And so today we're asking her the differences with the US formula versus the new international formula. With the US formula, we know the clinical trials, we know the studies, we know how it's proven. And with some of the ingredient changes, some people are nervous about the international formula not being as powerful or demonstrable, life-changing as the US formula that they're currently using. So if you can just give us some of those comparabilities, like with the matcha and the berberine and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So what's actually kind of funny about that is we actually had the opposite rumor going around in other consultants where they're like, oh, the international is so much better. And I was like, none of you guys have seen any data of anything. I'm the only one who's seen everything, but it's really funny. So there are two different formulas, and it comes down to regulatory regulations where we can only use certain ingredients in certain markets. So the first formula that we started with was the US, both the core and the enhanced. We started by looking at what our target was, what were the key pathways we wanted to address, and then we chose ingredients that would kind of work on those specific pathways. We didn't necessarily, there's some very familiar ingredients in there, like berberine and other like matcha and things like that. The key kind of hero ingredients that we started with the formula was actually lemon bioflavonoids and a very specific hydrolyzed acacia that already had clinical data showing that it activated GLP-1. And then we added additional ingredients to that formula and showed that there was additional synergies. That was for core, and then with enhanced, we came up with our own blend of fibers and starches along with other nutrients that would feed the microbiome to support GLP-1 production. We had fantastic cellular results, cell study results, and fantastic human clinical results that showed demonstrability. So we had the US formula. Then we took a look at the formula and said, okay, here are all of the things that we targeted with the US formula. We don't have the same tools available, but there are lots of other tools available that are just as good. So we started from scratch and said, what are the ingredients that are going to target GCG, which is the gene that encodes for proglucagon? That's the peptide that is then cleaved into active GLP-1. We looked at ingredients that would impact DPP-4, which is the enzyme that breaks down GLP-1. If it could lower some of that activity so we could have more GLP-1. Ingredients that would work on increasing GLP-1R, which is the receptor for GLP-1. We started from scratch there, and then we did our cell studies for that. We looked at what combinations of ingredients would, once again, activate all pieces of that pathway and show activation of GLP-1. And what we showed with our international formulas, we saw the synergy of the two together, just like we did for the US. And we saw the same targets being activated in our cell study. And so every confidence in the world that as our clinical study finishes that we are going to see phenomenal results because the mechanisms of action are the same, the cellular pathway is the same, the care that went into crafting the formula is exactly the same. This was not a case where we took the US formula and just stripped a bunch of things out of it. I think there's often that kind of perception with international formulas that, they're kind of second-class citizens, so we're just going to take out everything in the US that doesn't work. We don't do that because that's just horrible and we want our formulas to actually work. So we crafted the international from the ground up, which is why it has a different flavor because we wanted to play into some of the ingredients that are in, specifically for the enhanced. We wanted to play into some of the ingredients that we're using to feed the microbiome. The cranberry and blueberry powders, that's actually what the flavor ends up being. So there's not a flavor like vanilla that we give for the international. It's actually coming from the natural juice powders, which is really interesting, especially for people who are looking for clean ingredients. We're still using the same amount of starches. It's potato and tapioca, just like the US. We just changed up some of the vitamins. We actually learned a lot from the US where we determined which of the nutrients was actually needed for GLP-1 activation, and we chose those specifically for the international so it could be more targeted and focused on what it was supposed to do. So overall, went through exactly the same steps with the international formulas as we did the US. Same care was taken, same research is being done, and has already been done, and we have full confidence in how it's going to perform.
Okay, thank you. Love that. What about the folic acid? That's
so there's no folic acid in the international formula.
Okay, and what about fiber?
So same amount of fiber.
Same amount.
Yeah.
But because they do 2 scoops there, so they're feeling
Yes.
concerned about doing
so-
half as much.
No, it's, yes. So there is a little bit of less of a serving size that comes with the international formula. We use some more kind of concentrated ingredients in there, so we could use less of them and still get the same amount of benefits. But the amount of fiber remains the same.
Okay.
And so there's no difference there. Now, as far as the scoops, the serving size is not that much smaller. We just found a larger scoop that we did 2 of.
Oh, okay.
Because we wanted to make it a little bit more simple.
Oh,
So
that
it's
makes sense.
so
Okay.
if you actually see them side by side, there's a decent size difference
Okay.
between the scoops. I actually held it up for
Yeah.
a call
Yeah.
with some of the different international markets where I'm like, here's where you are with the US with a little small one, and then
Yeah.
you have a bigger one
Oh,
for
okay.
the international. So
Yeah.
even though you hear 2 scoops, in reality the serving sizes are much closer.
Okay. I love that. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, no problem.